Hey guys, tonight we're going somewhere unexpected, deep into the heart of KwaZulu-Natal, where twilight creeps slow and quiet through tall grasses, and distant drums thump like a second heartbeat. You're standing at the edge of a Zulu village, barefoot, the ground cool and dry underfoot. A smoky breeze rolls off a cooking fire, and for a second everything feels still, but beneath this calm, centuries of buried tension, tangled customs, and forgiveness that doesn't look anything like you're used to. You probably won't know this, but in Zulu communities, forgiveness isn't a quick "I'm sorry" followed by a gritted "it's fine." It's ceremonial, it's communal. It's sometimes offered with the same look you'd give a goat that just chewed your cell phone. Strange, sure, but powerful. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop a comment with your location and local time. I love seeing where in the world we're dreaming from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You arrive just after sunset. The colors melt from gold to charcoal, and the fire crackles behind a clay-walled rondavel. An older man eyes you from under a threadbare hat, like he's sizing up whether you're worth a story. Spoiler, you are. You're here to understand forgiveness, but the kind that seeps into bone. Not the cute kind with clean breaks and neat endings. This is forgiveness that smells like sweat, tastes like maize, and sits heavy on your chest before it ever lifts off. In Zulu culture, conflict isn't ignored, but it isn't rushed either. Western psychology often leans in to process your trauma, write it out, release it. But here, sometimes the first step is just sitting still beside it. Silence can be a kind of therapy. And tonight, that silence comes wrapped in smoke and the hum of cicadas. There's a family sitting around a fire, not speaking much. They've had a falling out, you're told. Something about land rights, an uncle's betrayal, and a cousin's stolen cattle. The details don't matter. What matters is how everyone is, waiting. No one storms off. No one apologizes. They just wait for the words, the signs, maybe even the ancestors. Mainstream psychology calls this delayed emotional processing. It's the idea that not every emotion needs immediate resolution. A 2018 study on communal cultures found that people often derive comfort from shared presence, not shared words. That might sound bananas when you're used to people yelling things like, "Can we just talk about it?" But here, the lack of confrontation is its own language. You shift slightly, the red dirt, soft under your toes. Someone hands you a massy fermented milk, a little sour, a little strange. The drink goes down smooth but leaves a thick taste on your tongue. Fitting, you think. Forgiveness can taste like that too. You glance around. No one's crying. No one's hugging. Just eyes flickering with past pain, shoulders carrying history, and the occasional sideways look that means I'm still mad, but I see you, which, let's be honest, is sometimes more honest than "I forgive you," muttered through gritted teeth. Now, here's the quirky bit. In some Zulu villages, there's a belief that harboring resentment can attract illness, not metaphorically, but actually. According to some traditional healers, if you refuse to forgive, your spirit becomes unbalanced. And when your spirit's out of whack, so is your health. Some even believe grudges can invite bad dreams or open your body to misfortune. Imagine your therapist saying, "You're constipated because of that grudge against your roommate." Weirdly compelling. Philosophers still argue whether forgiveness is an internal virtue or a social performance. But in this place, under this sky, it's both. You see that in how no one rushes anyone else. There's an understanding that healing comes in its own time. No productivity hacks. Number 5 steps to inner peace listicles. The fire crackles. Someone tosses in a piece of sweetgrass, and the smoke shifts direction, curling toward your nose. It smells like warm hay and something floral. Your eyelids droop for a second. Even your body wants to slow down here. You wonder, how do they forgive people who really mess up? Like betrayal, theft, lies. Turns out those aren't always private matters here. They're brought into the open, but not for punishment. For witnessing. Sometimes the whole village knows, and the act of sitting together eating together again is the forgiveness. It's not about the words, it's about presence. Western psychology likes terms like emotional labor, boundary, setting closure. But here, it's less compartmentalized, it's messier. Grudges float. Memories sting, but the collective carries it until the individual can't feel the weight as sharply. There's something oddly comforting about that, like being carried in a human hammock. One of the teens throws a stone at a bottle, misses, grins, the tension cracks just a little. Someone jokes about how his aim's as bad as his father's temper. Everyone laughs except the dad, who chuckles quietly, then pretends to be offended. And just like that, something unspoken shifts. The kind of shift you only notice when you're paying attention. Your feet are dusty, your mind's a bit foggy, and the idea that forgiveness needs to feel finished seems less important now. Maybe it's okay if it lingers like campfire on clothes unseen, but definitely still there. You close your eyes just for a second, listening to how quiet can hum louder than any apology. And tomorrow, there's a gathering planned. Not a court, not a therapy circle. Just people talking in turns, letting air touch old wounds. You'll be there, front row seat. But tonight, you're just one heartbeat among many. One breath in a story much older than you. Morning creeps in without asking permission. The sky isn't so much bright as it is gently unwrapping itself, soft pinks peeling into warm blues. Roosters call out like gossipy neighbors, and the village begins to hum again. You stretch under a blanket that smells like wood smoke and earth. Today's the day of the circle, a forgiveness gathering that unfolds with the pace of a drifting cloud and the emotional depth of a Shakespearean plot twist. You make your way to the central meeting space. It's not a hall or a courtroom. Just a clearing surrounded by low stools, tree stumps, and woven mats. People gather slowly, no rushing. Everyone seems to know this might take a while. You settle in with a bowl of aputhu, crumbly maize porridge, trying not to look too touristy, even though you're about to witness one of the most intimate community rituals in Zulu life. Then someone steps forward, quietly. No mic, no gavel, just a voice made rough by years of speaking with purpose. She begins to tell her story about betrayal, pain, and disappointment. The listeners don't interrupt. They don't sigh loudly, or glance at their watches, or mentally check out. They listen, all of them. Mainstream psychology might call this an example of restorative justice circles, an approach that brings victim and offender together, not to determine guilt, but to repair emotional damage. But here, it's older than any textbook. The process has been shaped by generations, by droughts, by wars, by shared bowls of food and shared scars. When the speaker finishes, no one claps. Instead, another stands. This one was the accused. He looks uncomfortable. He scratches his wrist, but he speaks too. He admits to what happened, or at least to how it was experienced. He says he was wrong, then adds something unexpected. I didn't understand then. And just like that, you feel the weight shift in the circle. Forgiveness here is less about wiping the slate clean and more about letting the wound breathe. Think less delete history and more add a footnote. It's not about saying the hurt didn't happen. It's about saying the hurt will not control what happens next. Now here's a weird little detail that makes you tilt your head. Before the gathering began, the elder leading the circle chewed a certain root. It's called umlunyani. And while some say it's just for spiritual clarity, others claim it helps clear emotional fog. There's no scientific consensus on this. Some call it psychosomatic, others placebo. But the elder's eyes are clear and bright, and his voice cuts through the air like it was sharpened on ancestral stone. Philosophers still argue whether public forgiveness undermines individual justice. Should reconciliation be so? Performative, doesn't it risk pressure or false healing? But here in this circle, you begin to see the value of transparency, the airing of pain, the offering of explanation not as an excuse but as a bridge. As more stories unfold, you notice patterns. No one raises their voice. No one defends themselves like a courtroom lawyer. People talk to each other, not about each other. Even the angriest speakers don't rant, they tell. Their words are paced, like steps across a minefield. A woman says, when you didn't come to my child's funeral, I felt erased. The man she's talking to looks like he's been hit in the chest. He nods once, doesn't deny it, doesn't deflect. He just says, I was ashamed. That lands heavier than 1,000 sorries. You're not crying, okay? Maybe a little. Just a very dignified tear escaping without your consent. One study in emotional regulation found that when people are given structured space to speak and be witnessed, cortisol levels drop significantly. Basically, stress releases itself like steam from a teapot. What you're seeing now, it's like that, only mixed with tradition, social accountability, and the occasional side-eye from a grandmother whose patience ran out in the 90s. There's also this amazing moment where someone tries to joke their way out of an accusation. The circle isn't having it. One woman cuts in, your joke is a blanket. We need you naked. Oof. Nobody claps, but you want to. She just handed him a truth bomb wrapped in poetry. And then comes the strangest bit of all. The forgiveness doesn't always happen right away. There's no forced hug, no we good. Some people just nod and stay quiet. In this culture, intention speaks louder than finality. If you show up, if you own your part, that's the beginning. And sometimes that's enough. Forgiveness might take another day or another decade. The fringe tidbit, in some rare cases, the circle is followed by a symbolic beer, pouring onto the earth and offering to the ancestors. Not always, but sometimes. The idea is that forgiveness isn't sealed until the spirits know peace has been attempted. Imagine ending your next argument with your sibling by pouring a lager onto the carpet and whispering, "Be calm, Aunt Maureen." You shift again on your mat. Your legs are cramping, but your heart feels strangely full. Not because the stories are resolved, but because they've been heard. Here, that's enough to plant seeds. As the session ends, a child passes around a basket of dried fruit and peanuts. A peace offering, not from the offender, but from the community, saying, "We sat with this, we hold it together now." You chew slowly. Each flavor feels heavy and sweet. Like maybe this is how forgiveness grows, not as a moment, but as a meal shared after pain. The circle disbands. People murmur, some laugh gently. A woman lightly slaps a man's shoulder and says, "You still owe me a chicken." He groans. She grins. You're not sure if she's joking. As you walk back to your hut, you think about how many apologies you've given that were really just escape hatches, and how many you never gave because you couldn't say the perfect thing. Maybe the circle doesn't need perfection, just honesty, just space to feel like a human again. You drift off to the sound of evening drums, already wondering who'll step into the circle next. The morning air smells like damp grass and charcoal smoke. Somewhere in the distance, a cow grunts with the kind of ancient indifference only cows can pull off. You yawn, stretch, and follow the sound of quiet humming into the outskirts of the village, where a few elders are sweeping the earth clean with thick grass brooms carefully, rhythmically, like they're brushing away something more than just leaves. Today's lesson doesn't come with a circle or a lecture. It comes in the form of a story, and you're about to learn that in Zulu psychology, forgiveness isn't just between people. It's a three-way conversation. You, the one who wronged you, and the ancestor who are most definitely listening. You sit with an older woman named Gogo Deli. Her eyes are crinkled, her voice like sand over stone. She doesn't greet you with small talk. She jumps straight in with a man who dies angry must answer twice. You blink twice. She means once to the people he hurt and once to the ancestors who now carry his name. In Zulu belief systems, the dead aren't gone. They're woven into daily life, consulted, honored. Sometimes even blamed when the kettle won't boil or your foot gets a mysterious rash. And when forgiveness is withheld, especially for serious misdeeds, it's said that the spirit of the wrongdoer can become restless. Or worse, cursed. Mainstream psychology doesn't exactly endorse ancestral justice, but it does talk a lot about the power of unresolved guilt. Studies show that lingering guilt can raise blood pressure, mess with sleep, and even mimic symptoms of depression. The Zulu frame it differently, of course. They'll tell you it's not your nerves, it's your great-grandmother's disapproval. Still, tomato, tomato. Gogo Deli tells you the story of her brother, Sipho, who died young and troubled. Head stolen. Money from their father, refused to apologize, and disappeared. When he passed, strange things started happening. Chickens refusing to lay eggs, goats crying at night, and Gogo herself dreaming of a river that flowed uphill. So the family called in a sangoma, a traditional healer who confirmed what everyone suspected. Sipho's spirit was restless. The only way to calm it, a forgiveness ceremony involving family members, symbolic objects from his childhood, and, wait for it, a calabash of beer that had to be left at a crossroads at midnight. You're now sitting with your mouth slightly open. This is the kind of story that would short-circuit your average therapist, and yet it feels emotionally accurate in some unspoken, gut-level way. The ceremony worked, Gogo says. The dreams stopped. The chickens resumed egg duties. Peace returned, not just to the yard, but to their hearts. This isn't just folklore. It's a system of emotional accountability that spans generations. You don't get to ghost people here, not even after death. Philosophers still argue whether responsibility should extend beyond the grave. Does a dead person still owe anything? And can the living truly forgive someone who's no longer around to hear it? But in this worldview, forgiveness isn't for them. It's for you, for your children, for the balance of your household. It's a ripple, not a one-time splash. And sometimes that ripple starts with a dream. Yes, dreams matter here. You're told that when someone appears to you in a dream, especially a deceased relative, it might mean you have unfinished business. Maybe you wronged them. Or maybe they're nudging you to forgive someone else. Either way, ignore it, and you're basically asking to spill boiling water on your lap at some point. The quirky bit. Some families actually keep a dream notebook for the ancestors. Not for lucid dreaming or manifestation. This isn't your TikTok witch starter kit. It's more like a ledger of spiritual messages. Gogo flips through hers casually. Most pages are ordinary. Dreamt of maize. Saw father again. But then there's one that says, Mother told me to forgive Zanale before it's too late. She did, and 2 days later, Zanale called. Out of nowhere, apologizing. You don't argue with timing like that. You take it all in slowly. The brooms, the stories, the sense that time here doesn't move in a straight line, it loops. What happened a decade ago isn't locked in a past. It's still pulsing, still humming, still asking to be seen. And sometimes the ones doing the asking aren't even breathing anymore. This kind of thinking might seem like superstition at first, but when you strip away the specifics, what are you left with? A belief that grudges hurt us, that forgiveness brings balance, that emotions, when unspoken, can twist our dreams and haunt our futures. Sound familiar? Modern psychology says the same, only with lab coats and peer-reviewed journals. You watch as Gogo Deli sprinkles snuff on the ground, muttering something soft to the soil. It's not a prayer exactly. It's a report, a spiritual email seed to the ancestors, letting them know that healing has started. You imagine doing that yourself, sprinkling something sacred in your backyard and saying, hey, I forgive Jamie for that thing in 2014 might be kind of nice. Might be weird, but maybe that's the point. You thank Gogo and stand the sun is higher now. Light filters through the trees like golden lace. You're not sure what shifted inside you, but it has. Something deep. Something old. Forgiveness isn't just between you and the one who hurt you. It's between you and every version of yourself that carried that hurt. It's between you and the people who raised you. And in this place, it's between you and the ancestors who still wander your dreams, quietly judging your emotional choices. As you walk back, a breeze brushes your face. It feels like a whisper. You probably won't admit it out loud, but you're starting to believe in that whisper. You wake up today to laughter. Not the high-pitched kind that bursts through headphones, but the slow, grounded laughter of people who've lived long and forgiven often. Someone's roasting sweet potatoes over a small flame, humming a tune that feels older than language. You stretch, roll your shoulders, and feel the peace of a night undisturbed by restless dreams or ghostly disapproval. Small victories. But there's something else waiting today. a concept you've heard mentioned before in whispers and soft chuckles. And no, not the computer system. We're talking about the Zulu philosophy that shapes everything here. From how people greet each other to how forgiveness is not just encouraged but expected. Loosely translates to, I am because we are. It's community over ego, harmony over winning, accountability over revenge. You mess up, you own it. Not because you're scared of being punished, but because your mistake ripples out. And so does your healing. You walk toward the edge of the village, where a group of teenagers is helping repair a fence. One of them, clearly trying to impress the others, hurls a rock at a chicken and misses by a feather. Laughter. But instead of scolding, the eldest among them gently says, Ungumuntu wabantu. You're a person of the people. It's a reminder. A soft reset. Basically, hey, your actions affect all of us. Act like it. Mainstream psychology might call this collectivist moral reinforcement, where behavior is shaped by how it impacts the group. Western therapy often focuses on the individual's journey, your trauma, your growth, your healing. But here, healing is a team sport. Even your internal wounds get shared time on the community scoreboard. You remember that forgiveness circle. That was Hemba in action. No one yelled. No one got canceled. Instead, there was this quiet expectation. You messed up and we still see you. But also we're watching, don't try that again. Philosophers still debate whether communal responsibility weakens individual accountability. If everyone's watching, do you only behave out of fear of judgment? Or can shared values actually build stronger personal integrity? Here, you see the answer in small things. Like how when someone drops a gourd of water, 3 people rush to help. Not to fix it for them, but to clean up together. Or how apologies don't end with I'm sorry, but with Nkiyasala I regret it with my whole being. A little drama, sure, but meaningful. You sit beside an old tree, its bark etched with knife marks from boys proving their bravery long ago. An elder joins you, Mr. Malongo. He has the kind of smile that's seen too many sunrises to pretend it's small talk. You ask him what food really feels like. He thinks a moment. It feels like knowing my mistake embarrasses my grandmother, he says, half laughing. And my apology restores her name. It's forgiveness not just for peace, but for pride. Your actions carry your bloodline's reputation. That's heavy, but also strangely comforting. You're never alone, even in your worst moments. Now here's a delightfully odd detail. There's a ritual in some families where, after a serious falling out, they'll cook and eat from the same pot as a sign of renewed connection. No fancy words, just shared stew, and if someone refuses the food, that's as loud as slamming a door. You eat, or you're still angry. You imagine trying that with your siblings. Here, I made spaghetti. If you don't eat it, we're still in a fight. Honestly, could work. Ubuntu's influence stretches into parenting too. Children aren't raised in isolation. If a kid misbehaves, any adult can step in to correct them. There's even a word for this. Ukekwaluka, a gentle, guiding correction given by someone who wants the child to do better, not feel worse. It makes forgiveness feel modeled, not demanded. Kids see adults argue and make up without losing status. There's no dramatic exile. No, we don't talk to them anymore. Just emotional choreography you grow into. A 2020 study on collectivist cultures found that children raised with shared responsibility frameworks were quicker to forgive and more emotionally resilient during conflicts. Western kids might learn to say sorry early, but these kids mean it by the time they're 6. You watch a small disagreement unfold between 2 teenage girls. One borrowed the other's beaded belt without asking. A small scandal, but instead of yelling, they talk it out. Quietly, with nods, not eye rolls. It ends with the borrower returning the belt, and the lender adjusting it on her friend's waist with a joke about her bad taste. No grudges, just a shared understanding. We live too close to stay angry long, of course, has its critics. Some say it pressures people to forgive too easily. To keep peace at the cost of truth, and yes, sometimes people do stay silent just to avoid shaming the family. But that's not the whole picture. More often than not, it's less about swallowing pain and more about giving it somewhere to rest, like a hammock between two trees. The sun has dipped a little lower now. You feel its heat in your chest. Maybe it's the philosophy, maybe it's the heat stroke. Either way, you're softer inside. You remember someone you haven't forgiven, someone whose name still clenches your jaw. You wonder what would happen if you saw them through habit eyes. Not as a villain, but as someone whose brokenness affected your shared world. Someone you might one day sit and eat stew with again. Maybe not today, but maybe you stand up slowly, dust off your legs, and for just a moment you imagine what your grandmother would say if you refused to forgive. Yeah. You should probably make that call. The cowbells jingle in that oddly satisfying, offbeat rhythm as you trail behind a small group walking toward a nearby. Corral an enclosure made of thorny branches and packed earth. Inside, several cattle are grazing peacefully, completely unaware they're about to play a supporting role in today's forgiveness scene. Yep, cows, big ones. Long lashes, slow blinks, and somehow emotionally symbolic. You're not here for a barbecue or a livestock lesson. You're about to witness a reconciliation ceremony involving cattle, which to your modern brain might sound like a deleted scene from an old folk tale. But to the Zulu, it's one of the oldest, most serious gestures of apology and peacemaking. Today, a man named Beki is seeking forgiveness from another family. Years ago, his brother caused a fatal car accident and fled. No apology, no closure, just grief and a cold trail. But now Beki, the surviving sibling, wants to make amends, not just to the family, but to the spirits, the community, and the rhythm of right and wrong. He's offering one of his best bulls. Mainstream psychology talks a lot about symbolic restitution. It's when people give something tangible to represent emotional healing, money, time, acts of service. But here, the symbol is a living, breathing animal that feeds, walks, and occasionally tries to eat your shirt. There's weight to this gesture. Not just because cattle are expensive, but because they represent life, wealth, ancestors. A bloodline. You don't just hand over a bull, you're handing over your pride, your name, your willingness to be humbled. Beki walks slowly toward the family he wronged. The bull is decorated with ochre marks and has beads around its horns. It looks bored, as bulls do, but everyone else is silent. This is a moment. Philosophers still debate whether forgiveness should come with compensation. Does payment undermine sincerity? Or is it proof of how seriously the apology is taken? In this culture, it's both. The gift doesn't buy forgiveness. It proves the wound is recognized and respected. A woman steps forward. The sister of the deceased, she says nothing at first, just circles the bull once, then twice. Her eyes are sharp but unreadable. Then she speaks. You brought us something alive. Will you now speak for the one who is gone? Beki doesn't hesitate. I was a coward for staying away. I cannot fix the past, but I bring this life because words are too small. You feel the temperature drop, or maybe it's just your skin reacting. There's kind of humming, almost like a prayer. Someone in the back is clicking their tongue softly. It's not a chant, more like emotional punctuation. Then comes the quirky bit. After the formal speech, someone produces a tiny clay pot filled with herbs and ash. This is imbiza, a ritual blend burned to carry the truth to the air. One pinch tossed into the fire, and it's like hitting send on your spiritual email. The smoke curls upward. Everyone watches it like it's about to draw their family tree in the sky. Western therapists might raise an eyebrow at using livestock and scented smoke to resolve trauma. But honestly, there's something to it. One study from the Journal of Cross-Cultural Psychology found that symbolic ritual, especially involving gifts or nature, can create stronger emotional closure than verbal apology alone. The brain likes action. It likes seeing remorse take form, so here it is, a bull standing where pain used to be. A flame whispering secrets into the sky, and two families breathing a little easier, even if their hearts still ache. You can't help but think of all the times you've apologized with a text message. Srayabti that lowell. Compare that to this. The dignity, the slowness, the sincerity dripping from every movement. There's something quietly revolutionary about it. And here's a detail you might love. Once the ceremony is complete, if forgiveness is accepted, the receiving family gets to name the bull, not after themselves, but after the lesson they learned from the experience. It might be called Peace That Waited or He Who Returned. These names are whispered when the cattle are counted, passed down to children, woven into stories. Imagine if your mistakes had their own names, not to haunt you, but to remind you how far you've come. After a while, the tension eases. Someone cracks a joke about the bull being too handsome to give away. Laughter ripples, not forced, just, right, like the air's been stirred and settled again. Becky doesn't get instant absolution, but he's not sent away either. He stays, eats, drinks sweet tea, and eventually he and the grieving family sit side by side in the shade, not speaking much. Just being, letting the presence replace the absence. You look at the bull again, still chewing, blissfully unaware that he just saved a man's soul. Forgiveness here isn't just a feeling, it's a whole event, with dust and animals and family politics and spiritual symbolism, and somehow it works. As you walk back, your shoes kicking up little puffs of dust, you wonder what it would look like to bring something like this into your life. No, not bulls. Maybe a meal, a painting, a letter that smells like sage and history, something more than words. Something heavy enough to carry emotion the way this ceremony carried Becky's. Because sometimes I'm sorry is too small but a bull. Now that says something. The sun hovers high today, casting long, clean shadows over the village huts like someone's dropped a sepia filter over the world. You wander slowly, still processing yesterday's bull-sized apology when you're invited to sit near a woman weaving baskets under a tree. Her name is Fandi. She's not an elder, but her silence feels just as wise. You sit beside her. No introduction. No how are you. Just the shush. Shush of grass against grass as she braids it tighter and tighter. You sit for a while. Then a while longer. Anjali, she speak ache, we forgave each other, she says, but never with words. It's not the kind of sentence that invites follow-up questions. So you don't. You just listen. Thandi tells you about her sister, a rift, something unspoken and years old. She doesn't explain what caused it, that's not the important part. What matters is that one day, they started cooking together again. That was the apology. That was the healing. And the funny thing, no one even said sorry. This might break your brain a little. But in Zulu culture, sometimes silence is forgiveness. Or, more precisely, presence after. Absence is, you show up, you do the thing. And that is the thing. Western psychology loves a good let's talk it out. But here, the healing often happens not through verbal resolution, but through shared rituals, cooking, walking, singing, even just sitting under the same tree without throwing a sandal. It's called Yukuthula, a peaceful silence that doesn't mean avoidance. It means resolution, without performance. A 2019 study on cultural modes of conflict repair noted that nonverbal reconciliation is significantly more common and more emotionally effective in collectivist societies. People value relational harmony over verbal precision. Basically, actions whisper louder than words. Philosophers still argue whether unspoken forgiveness is real forgiveness. Is it meaningful if nothing is said? Is emotional peace possible without explicit acknowledgement? But Thandi seems fine. She weaves with calm hands, and you can tell she's not carrying anything heavy anymore. Her baskets, yes, but not resentment. You glance around. A young boy helps his father untangle fishing nets. They're not talking, just working in sync. It feels intimate. And here comes the fringe bit. In some Zulu traditions, too many words during reconciliation can actually dilute the moment. It's believed that truth can get lost in explanation, twisted by ego or nervousness. So instead, many people let the action stand for itself. A shared task, a delivered meal, a return to normal routine. That's the apology. You think about that weird, modern urge to demand an apology that sounds exactly right. You didn't say it like you meant it. That's not a real sorry. But what if someone just showed up with your favorite food, sat next to you in silence, and didn't leave? Could that count? You're starting to think it could. Later, you watch as Thandi's sister arrives. She sits down, picks up a strip of grass, starts weaving beside her. No hi, no tension, no backstory recap. Just two people, one pattern, and a piece that doesn't need subtitles. It's strange at first, watching people do intimacy without narration. But the more you observe, the more you realize how safe it feels, how safe they feel with each other. That safety is the apology, that stillness is the release. Mainstream therapy might call this a form of mutual regulation. The idea that shared behavior can align nervous systems. When you breathe together, move together, or work side by side, your bodies signal, hey, we're okay now. The Zulu don't need that terminology. They just call it life. There's a man a few huts down repairing a drum. The boy from earlier is with him, no one saying anything. Then the man hands the boy the drumstick. The boy plays 3 soft beats, the man nods. That's it. That was the mending of some tiny fracture, some father-son ache that didn't need to be narrated. You start to notice it everywhere now, quiet reconciliation, unspoken truce, gentle gestures. It's like an emotional Morse code that Western eyes miss. And here's the thing, no one rushes it. In a world obsessed with closure, this culture believes in gradual thawing. You don't crack the ice, you let the sun work. You remember someone you once fell out with. The text messages, the long threads, the post-mortem calls with mutual friends. You said all the right things, but somehow it stayed broken. You wonder if you'd just shown up, offered help, made a meal. Would that have done more? Thandi finishes her basket. It's tight, even, and strong. Like something built to carry emotion. She hands it to you without a word. You're not sure if she means thanks or go now or remember this, but it lands in your lap like a sacred object. So you sit, just a little longer, in silence, letting your breath match hers. Letting your ideas about forgiveness stretch and crack just a little. Maybe you don't always need an apology to forgive. Maybe you just need a moment that says, I'm here. I'm still me, and you're still worth showing up for. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. It's early evening now, the kind where the light starts to turn syrupy and soft, coating the rooftops and dust trails in a gentle gold. You wander toward the center of the village, drawn by the sound of clapping, not rhythmic, not rehearsed, just bursts of it. Laughter, too. Sharp and filtered, almost a little too loud for such a quiet place. You step into an open courtyard where a group has gathered. Not to settle a grievance, not to debate or demand restitution, just to tell the story. And by story we mean the painful thing, the public rupture, the hurt that everyone already knows about, but no one's spoken aloud. Until now. You take a seat on a log bench. The air is thick with the scent of grilled maize and something slightly bitter burning sage, maybe, or a plant you can't name. At the center of it all is an older man, gray at the temples, eyes dancing with mischief. He clears his throat. He's the one telling the story of how he betrayed his neighbor years ago. For land, it involved lies, brides, shame, and now he's reenacting it. Not with sorrow, but with comedy. Yes, you heard that right, comedy. Here, public pain often transforms into performance. The goal isn't humiliation, it's release, and there's a particular name for this in some circles. Bukulakisa ingobulungu, roughly, to tease the pain. It's a community technique not unlike group therapy meets improv roast, with a little spiritual seasoning. Mainstream psychology calls this communal storytelling for trauma integration. When people narrate their past pain in a space of shared laughter and empathy, they metabolize the emotion instead of storing it like emotional plaque. And here's the kicker: studies have shown that humor in emotionally safe environments can actually accelerate healing. It doesn't minimize the event, it softens the scar. Still, philosophers love to squabble over this one. Should pain be laughed at? Is public vulnerability empowering or exploitative? Does humor sanitize truth, or does it make truth survivable? In this courtyard, though, no one's debating, they're laughing. They're leaning in, and somehow they're healing. The man pantomimes his old deception, sneaking through bushes, whispering to a government official, wearing a hat 3 sizes too big to disguise himself. Everyone howls. Even the neighbor he betrayed chuckles, shaking his head. But when the laughter fades, the man bows his head and says, almost too softly to catch, "And I was wrong, and I am sorry." It's the most serious sentence of the night, no drama, just quiet gravity. And then the neighbor walks up, not with anger, not with applause. He stands there, arms crossed, then nods. "You were a fool," he says, "but now you're our fool." More laughter, then applause. This time it's warm, round, healing. You've never seen forgiveness look like this. Like a comedy set, a confessional, and a family reunion wrapped in the same blanket. Here's your quirky detail. In some communities, they'll use playful reenactment as a formal part of forgiveness. Offenders and those they hurt might switch roles, act out how the offense happened, and even exaggerate it to ridiculous degrees. Why? Because turning pain into play helps release shame. It's not about pretending it didn't matter. It's about proving you're bigger than the wound. You watch as a woman steps up next, her issue. She once refused to help a sick neighbor during a drought. But instead of launching into guilt, she reenacts herself slamming the door dramatically and yelling, "Try prayer instead of my water." The crowd gasps, then they laugh. "Hard when it's over," she says. "I was afraid I'd lose my own supply. I regret that fear." And just like that, the room exhales again. The whole thing feels ancient and revolutionary at the same time. Emotional alchemy, taking something bitter and turning it into a story, then feeding that story to everyone so it doesn't rot alone in your heart. You sit there, eyes stinging slightly either from the smoke or the feelings, hard to tell and realize. You've been part of spaces where people confess. Online threads, heartfelt DMS, maybe even late night crying in someone's car. But those moments didn't always bring relief. Sometimes they just spread the ache around. Here, the ache is reshaped, given arms and legs, given a second chance. You wonder what story you tell. What hurt you'd turn into a joke if the room was right. Maybe it would begin with a lie you told someone who trusted you. Or that friendship you let rot because pride kept your mouth shut. Maybe you'd imitate yourself, pouting, posturing, avoiding the phone call, and everyone would laugh. And maybe somewhere in that laughter, the pain would loosen. You also can't help but note how honest everyone is being. No one's sugarcoating. No one's making themselves the victim. It's like a spiritual roast, but the fire burns clean. And when people leave tonight, they'll feel lighter. Not because they've forgotten the past, but because they've told it out loud and let the wind take the rest. One study you remember from way back in your reading rabbit holes found that public storytelling of personal trauma reduces rumination and boosts social connection, especially when the audience is receptive and kind. It's not about rehashing the drama, it's about integrating it, making it part of your narrative self and in this village. That narrative gets shared, reshaped, and healed, one smirk at a time as the sky darkens and the last storyteller bows out. People begin to drift home, some still chuckling, others thoughtful. A few wiping their eyes, you rise too, a little stunned. Forgiveness here doesn't always come from solemn moments or symbolic gestures. Sometimes it comes wrapped in ridicule, softened with sarcasm, and sealed with a wink. You walk back slowly, the taste of grilled maize still on your lips, the echo of laughter in your ears. Somewhere in the dark, someone claps twice. Just for the joy of it. And you realize maybe part of forgiving is being laughed at, gently, lovingly, truthfully, until you no longer fear the story of what you did. The sky today is scattered with white clouds like sheep drifting lazily across an endless pasture. You've come to the schoolyard now, a wide, dusty clearing dotted with children who seem to exist in permanent motion. They run, shout, chase chickens, build forts out of sticks. And yet, within this joyful chaos, something deeper is unfolding. You sit under a marula tree beside a teacher named Cindy. She's not in uniform, and the children call her Cece with affection and half the reverence she probably deserves. You're here to learn how forgiveness takes root in the youngest minds, how it's taught when your brain still mixes up left and right, but somehow knows exactly how to hold a grudge over a stolen mango. Cindy smiles at a girl pouting nearby. That one's learning, she says. Her friend wore her necklace without asking. Catastrophe. You watch the drama unfold, but instead of a timeout or a lecture, the teacher kneels between them, offers each child a fruit, and says, "Can you eat while angry?" The children glance at each other, then eat anyway, cautiously, like baby diplomats. By the time they're licking their fingers, the necklace is forgotten, and a game begins. Welcome to Zulu-style emotional education. Forgiveness here isn't taught through punishment. It's modeled, it's felt, it's planted in the body before the vocabulary even forms. You share, you sit, you eat together again. Mainstream developmental psychology has long studied how children develop moral reasoning. One key idea. Kids don't understand abstract justice early on. What they understand is fairness, belonging, whether they're safe and whether they're still wanted after they mess up. And here, that's exactly what the lesson is. No whiteboards full of definitions. No glittery Kindness Week posters, just stories, rituals, and lived practice. Cindy tells you that when a child misbehaves, the approach isn't to isolate them. It's to fold them back in. She gives an example. A boy broke another's toy out of jealousy. He was made to sit and help weave a new one with that. Group not as punishment, but as participation. When you help create, she says, you begin to care again. Philosophers still argue whether forgiveness should be instinctual or taught. Are we born with the ability to let go, or do we only learn it by watching others do it first? The answer here seems to be both. Children learn through story, through mimicry, through repetition that doesn't feel like a rule book, but like breathing. You sit in on story time later that afternoon. It's not exactly what you'd expect. The teacher opens with "Once there was a rabbit who stole from a lion, but the lion didn't roar, he just waited." The story unfolds with tension, humor, and an ending where the rabbit is forgiven, but only after returning what he took and sitting beside the lion in silence. The children are riveted. No moral is stated aloud, but you can feel it landing like dust on their skin. The quirky bit: sometimes forgiveness is taught through food. After a disagreement, it's common for children to be invited to share a snack as a gesture of truce. No demands, no forced apologies. Just one child holding out a piece of roasted maize and saying, "You can have this." That's it. A kernel of maize where 1,000 angry words could have lived. You see it happen. A small boy with gig eyes and dusty knees offers a bite of dried guava to the girl who shoved him earlier. She takes it. They sit, they don't talk. 2 minutes later, they're chasing chickens again. Emotional equilibrium restored. Western parenting books might raise a brow. Shouldn't they talk about what happened? But here, the assumption is that they already know. The heart understands, the action speaks. One recent study on child empathy development found that nonverbal acts of reparation, like helping, sharing, or showing concern, can be more developmentally effective than verbal apologies alone, especially for kids under 10. It helps them feel empathy, not just recite it. You ask Cindy what happens when a child refuses to forgive. She nods. That happens too. We wait. We tell more stories. Sometimes they see a sibling forgive first, and that makes it safe to follow. It's the long game. Emotional modeling over time. No urgency, just consistency. You start to reflect on your own early lessons about forgiveness. Were they modeled or demanded? Say sorry. Now hug. Be nice. Sometimes those words worked. Sometimes they just taught you how to perform forgiveness without feeling it. Here, there's room for both, emotion and action. And time. The bell rings, a dull metal clunk that sounds like someone hitting a frying pan. The children scatter. Dust rises like applause. You stay behind as Indy gathers up the books, still smiling. Before you leave, you ask her, "What's the most important part of teaching forgiveness to children?" She pauses, then answers simply, teaching them that they are never alone. Even in mistakes, you think about that all the way back to your hut, about how many adults are still just children trying to be loved after they mess up. And as Ting, about how many grown-up feuds are really just two people too scared to offer the guava. Maybe forgiveness doesn't start with maturity. Maybe it starts with someone showing you, before you even know the word, how to sit beside someone you've hurt and still be welcome. The air tonight is heavier, not in a threatening way, just thicker, like it's holding something it hasn't decided whether to reveal. You wake up before dawn, stirred by a dream you don't quite remember, just a sensation. Someone standing beside your bed, watching, waiting, not menacing, just expectant. Outside, the village is hushed. A single bird calls out into the stillness, unsure whether morning has really begun. You wrap a blanket around your shoulders and step out into the pre-dawn chill, drawn toward the older section of the village where huts lean a little, and time feels slower. You've been invited to speak with Mandlovu, a spiritual interpreter, dream reader, and unofficial therapist of the village. She's the kind of woman who looks at you once and already knows what you're trying to forget. Her hut smells of warm herbs, ash, and wood smoke, and inside dreams are taken seriously. Here in Zulu culture, dreams are not just random brain static. They're messages, sometimes from the ancestors, sometimes from guilt, sometimes from your own soul trying to push past your defenses. The line between psychology and spirituality is beautifully blurry. You sit across from her on a grass mat, no introductions. Just the question, what is chasing you in your dreams? You blink, you haven't said anything yet. But somehow she knows. Mainstream psychology sees dreams as unconscious processing. Freud famously described them as the royal road to the unconscious, while modern neuroscientists argue that dreams help regulate emotions and consolidate memory. Both might agree, what disturbs us in sleep often reveals what we avoid in waking life. But in this village, the idea is more direct. If you've wronged someone, or if you're holding on to a wound too long, the dreams speak back. Maybe it's the image of a deceased parent. Maybe a snake circling your bed. Maybe just the echo of someone calling your name from far away. Mandlovu tells you the story of a boy who ignored his father's dying wish to reconcile with a cousin. For months after the funeral, the boy had nightmares of being chased through the forest, every night the same path. The same falling. Only when he visited the cousin and spoke, did the dream stop. The forest no longer chased him. Philosophers still argue whether guilt is a purely psychological construct or something deeper, more metaphysical. Can we truly separate our biology from our beliefs, or does guilt have claws, regardless of whether you believe in spirits? You sip something warm and bitter from a wooden cup, some kind of tea. Mandlovu tells you it's made from isilangu, a plant believed to clarify the mind and open the dream channels. You must see, she says, not just sleep. She asks about your own dreams. You describe the figure, the silence. The way it never speaks but leaves you waking with clenched fists. She nods once and says, that is not someone else. That is you, the version of you that still holds the anger. Quirky detail. In some Zulu traditions, if you keep having dreams linked to unresolved conflict, the advice isn't therapy. It's to physically return to the place or person involved. Even if you don't talk, just be there. Walk the space. Acknowledge it. Let your body remind your spirit that it's safe to let go. You're told of another woman who kept dreaming about water overflowing in her house. The elders said it was her grief spilling over, grief she refused to speak about. Eventually, she hosted a meal in honor of her late husband. No speeches, just food. The dreams stopped. Modern science might call that a somatic release. Emotion finding form, but here they'd say her soul had a backlog, and now it's been emptied. You look into the fire. The embers glow like open eyes, and you begin to wonder how much of your own unease, your sleeplessness, your heaviness, your tension is just old emotions still knocking on the inside of your skull. What have you refused to forgive because you never felt it fully to begin with? You ask Mandlovu if it's possible to forgive someone who isn't sorry. Her response is as sharp as it is soft. You don't need their sorry. You need your peace. You sit with that for a long moment. Forgiveness in this worldview isn't a transaction. It's not a handshake or a neat bow on the past. It's a release, and often, it begins not in conversation, but in dreams, where your logic is off duty and your heart can finally speak in metaphors. It's no wonder that dream sharing is common here. In morning gatherings, people might casually say, "I dreamt of a river," and someone else will nod and reply. Someone is about to forgive. The imagery carries weight. Water, especially, is seen as cleansing, fire, purifying, snakes. Complicated, sometimes wisdom, sometimes warning, and ancestors. Always a call to listen. You step out of Mandlovu's hut just as the sky begins to pinken. The chill is still there, but you feel warmer inside. Lighter, somehow. Not because everything is resolved, but because you're beginning to understand that not every wound needs words. Some just need dreams and space and the courage to listen. You pause to watch the sun climb over the horizon, its light sliding slow across the huts. Somewhere behind you, the embers crackle one last time. And in that quiet, you make a decision, not to forgive necessarily, but to stop clenching your fists every time that memory knocks on your mind's door. Maybe next time it shows up in your dreams, you'll sit with it. Maybe you'll listen. Maybe, finally, you'll stop running. There's a peculiar electricity in the air today, not the thunderstorm kind, but the kind that crackles just behind polite smiles and cautious glances. People seem more alert, more measured in their speech. Even the chickens look mildly suspicious. You're told there's been talk of witchcraft. Yes, really. Now, before your inner skeptic lights up like a Christmas tree, take a breath. You're not in a fantasy novel. You're in a world where belief systems are layered, where emotional hurt, spiritual imbalance, and social friction overlap like woven grass mats. And in some Zulu communities, witchcraft isn't just a spooky campfire concept. It's part of the moral ecosystem, a way of explaining harm that logic can't account for. It's not about potions and pointy hats, it's about energy, intention. What happens when resentment festers and takes on a shape of its own? You meet a man named Musa, standing outside his kraal with folded arms and furrowed brows. His son has been sick for weeks, no diagnosis, no improvement. Musa believes the illness was sent, not caught. And at the heart of that suspicion, a long-standing family feud, one that never received forgiveness. One that was never properly closed, he sighs. Forgiveness is not just for peace, sometimes it's protection. It sounds dramatic, but even mainstream psychology has its own version of this. Studies have shown that chronic emotional suppression, especially of anger and betrayal, can manifest in physical symptoms. Not just tension, headaches, or insomnia, but real measurable immune suppression. The body remembers, and in cultures like this one, the explanation isn't psychosomatic. It's spiritual, a bad vibe made real. Philosophers still argue whether spiritual interpretations of illness invalidate science, or if they reflect an emotional truth we're too quick to dismiss. What matters here isn't whether you believe in curses. What matters is that people act as if they're real, and those actions shape how forgiveness is approached. For example, when a suspected witchcraft-related grievance is at play, a reconciliation ritual becomes more than symbolic. It becomes necessary, not just to restore peace, but to remove the danger. You're invited to one such ritual. You arrive just after sundown, the fire already lit, casting long, jittery shadows across the ground. A goat bleats nervously nearby. Musa is there, along with the accused, his cousin Numvula. There are murmurs she might have wished. Harm on his child, no proof. Just a string of eerie coincidences and a souring of the air between them. Now, if you're picturing a confrontation, think again. This is not an exorcism, no shouting, no accusations flung like stones. Instead, there's storytelling, a recounting of the tension, the suspicion, the silence. Then Namvula speaks. Her voice is calm, measured. "I have never sent harm. But if you feel I wronged you, I come to return the peace between us." She offers a small pouch, Intelizi, an herbal mix used for cleansing, symbolic, maybe superstitious, perhaps, but the weight of it is undeniable. He places it on the ground between them, and for a moment, everyone just watches it, like it might blink. Musa nods, slowly. Not convinced, maybe, but relieved. Then comes the quirky twist. To bind the peace, the two must eat from the same dish. A shared bowl of pap and sour greens is passed between them. One eats, then the other, nothing dramatic. Just the chewing of reconciliation. A moment soaked in history and a dash of suspicion. Later, a sangoma tosses bones. A ritual divination to confirm that the energy has settled. The bones clatter. The sangoma nods. The ancestors are quiet now. Is that science? No. Is it effective? For this community, yes. Forgiveness here isn't about emotions only. It's a recalibration of spiritual balance, a healing of invisible threads that bind one soul to another. And here's something oddly relatable. Sometimes people delay forgiveness because they're afraid of what will happen if they let it go. Not just emotionally, but energetically. If I forgive them, will I become vulnerable again? It's not just about peace, it's about safety. You've probably felt that too, even if you've never worried about hexes or ghost chickens, that gut-level question. If I let go, what keeps them from hurting me again? Here, that fear is honored, it's named, addressed, ritualized. You're told that in cases where full reconciliation feels too risky, the community offers a halfway option. Ukulambulula, a cleansing for yourself, not the other person. You wash your hands in a basin with herbs, whisper a release into the water, and walk away. You don't forget. But you also don't carry the poison forward. The ritual is private, quiet, but powerful. A forgiveness that doesn't require the other person's participation, just your own readiness. You imagine doing that yourself. Maybe not with a basin of herbs, but with something tactile. Writing a letter you never send. Burning an old shirt. Placing a stone somewhere and walking away. Something your body can believe in, even if your mind still argues. The fire has burned low now. The goat, now forgotten, curls in the grass. Musa sits beside Nombula, not close, but not apart either. They're not laughing, they're not hugging. But the storm has passed. The air feels lighter, settled, and in that quiet you realize something. Forgiveness isn't always about who was right or what happened. Sometimes it's about making the world safe again, inside you, around you, even if you have to eat a strange herb or share a nervous meal to do it. The village feels different today, not loud or tense, just subdued, like everyone's holding their breath a little. You walk slower, you greet softer. Even the dogs seem to bark with less conviction. You're here to meet someone people speak of only in half sentences, not because they fear him, but because they pity him. His name is Jabulani, and he's known for something very specific. He hasn't forgiven. Not anyone, not ever. His hut sits apart from the others, just past a thin line of acacia trees. It's well kept but strangely quiet. No children playing nearby. No laughter bouncing off the walls. You're told he rarely speaks unless spoken to, and even then it's brief. Polite, but distant. You approach, shoes crunching softly over dried leaves. Jabulani greets you with a nod. No smile. His eyes are kind, but somewhere behind them, you sense something rusted shut. Like a door that's been locked from the inside for years. You sit, you wait. Eventually he talks. Not about what happened, but about what didn't. His brother betrayed him over land, money, something he won't elaborate on. What matters is that the apology never came. The circle never formed. The moment for reconciliation passed years ago. And now, the wound has calcified. Not just emotionally, physically. He tells you he's been ill off and on for years. Nothing serious. Just a persistent ache in the joints. Sleeplessness. A stomach that never fully settles. He's seen doctors. Taken medicine. But nothing quite works. I don't think it's the food, he says. I think it's the memory. Mainstream psychology has been talking about this for decades. The mind-body connection. Especially when it comes to unresolved trauma and resentment. Studies show that people who harbor long-term grudges often report higher levels of anxiety, lower immune function, and even increased blood pressure. The science calls it allostasis gone rogue. The Zulu call it moya, a mubi, a bad wind in the soul. Jabulani doesn't argue the philosophy. He just lives it. You ask why he never forgave, he shrugs. I was waiting for him to come, he never came. A pause, and now I don't know how to forgive a ghost. Philosophers still debate whether forgiveness must involve the other person. Can you really let go without acknowledgement, without witness? Or does forgiveness unspoken rot inward like forgotten fruit? You asked if he's tried one of the symbolic rituals, pouring beer for the ancestors, or whispering a release into the earth. He looks at you, then away. I think if I forgive him now, he says, I will feel how much I've missed him, and I don't know if I can survive that. And there it is, the real weight, not anger. Grief, here's the quirky bit. In some rare Zulu customs, for cases like Jabulani's, a ritual of delayed forgiveness is offered by the community on the person's behalf. A surrogate gathering, the idea is, if you can't forgive, we'll do it for you. We'll release what you're carrying, even if you're too deep inside it to find the edge. It's not common, it's not casual, but it exists. Because in this culture, unhealed wounds don't just affect the individual. They echo, and Jabulani's echo has grown long and hollow. His isolation isn't punishment, it's a symptom. The community doesn't shun him, they just give him space. The kind of space that's slowly turning into loneliness. You sit there a long time. No healing happens, no miracle. But maybe something shifts, maybe just being heard is a start. Maybe your quiet presence is its own kind of ritual. Before you leave, he tells you something that hits harder than you expect. I used to dream of him, then I stopped. I think he gave up on me. You carry that sentence all the way back to your own thoughts, back to people you've written off. People who hurt you. People you secretly wished would show up with a wild apology and make it easy. But what if they don't? What if they can't? Are you willing to be like Jabulani? To clutch the memory until your body wears it like armor? To wait so long that forgiveness becomes impossible? Not because the pain is too fresh, but because it's too old. The fire in your chest doesn't burn. It smolders, quiet and slow, like regret that learned how to sit still. You think of all the people carrying their pain like that. People you pass on the street, in your office, at family dinners, who smile but never forget, who nod politely but feel like abandoned rooms. Maybe the real cost of not forgiving isn't bitterness. Maybe it's becoming invisible to your own joy. Jabulani walks you to the edge of his yard. He doesn't say goodbye. Just nods once and turns back toward his hut. You keep walking, dust clinging to your shoes, thoughts clinging to your shoulders, and somewhere behind you, a door doesn't quite close. It's market day now, and the village feels like it's exhaling. Stalls brim with beaded jewelry, baskets of sun-warmed fruit, and gossip served fresh with every transaction. People greet each other with easy smiles and that musical Zulu laughter that seems to rise up from the belly and bounce around the walls like a friendly echo. You're following the smell of roasted maize when you're ushered, gently but without much room to say no, into a shaded corner where a small crowd is forming around an open mat. A man named Saizwe stands at the center, arms folded, face already twisted into mock concern. Ah, he cries out, pointing dramatically at an older woman across from him, this one. She forgave me for stepping on her toe. 10 years later, everyone bursts out laughing, including her. Welcome to a different kind of healing circle, a roast, Zulu style. But not the kind designed to tear down or humiliate. Here, teasing is a tool, gently exposing old wounds, poking fun at past mistakes, and laughing through the tension are all part of a social ritual that restores balance through joy. Sitswe continues performing a reenactment of his teenage self, awkward, overly confident, trying to flirt with a cousin's friend and accidentally insulting half her family. The real punchline, that friend is now his wife, sitting 2 feet away, trying not to spill her tea from laughing too hard. Mainstream psychology recognizes this too. It's called humor-based relational repair. When done safely, with mutual trust, teasing can actually reduce residual shame and reestablish emotional closeness. Shared laughter produces oxytocin, the so-called bonding hormone. It's like hugging without the awkward body contact. But there's a crucial difference here. This humor isn't weaponized, it's ceremonial. It's framed by affection and history. It has unspoken rules. No deep cuts, no fresh wounds, and no mocking what someone hasn't healed from yet. Saisui finishes his story and sits down. Immediately, someone else pops up, a teenage girl this time, accusing her uncle of once telling the village she couldn't cook. She narrates the scene with over-the-top theatrical flair, miming her horror at burnt porridge, the shame of judgment, the exaggerated melodrama of being emotionally scarred by onions. The uncle bows his head in mock shame, then replies, "And yet you still made us eat it." More laughter, not polite giggles. Release laughter, the kind that lets everyone breathe a little deeper after. Philosophers still debate whether forgiveness should be solemn. Is humor too casual for the gravity of wrongdoing? Does laughter deflate real pain, or prove that we've survived it? In this circle, the answer is clear. Laughter is what makes the pain survivable. Here's the quirky bit. At the end of every session, there's a tradition called Coca-Cola, a moment where each person gives a small compliment or word of gratitude to the person they teased. It balances the play. It turns mockery into a full circle. You roast, and then you restore. You watch as the teenage girl walks over and kisses her uncle's head. "Thanks for always eating my terrible food." He smiles, eyes crinkling. "Thank you for still cooking." This is forgiveness as performance art, as collective therapy, as dinner theater with emotional stakes, and it works. You sit beside an older woman who's knitting during all this. She hasn't spoken once, but she's chuckling quietly to herself. You ask if she's ever been roasted. "Oh yes," she says. "They once made a whole sketch about how I used to lock my chickens in my house because I was scared of thieves." You laugh. She shrugs, smiling. The chickens were safe. You ask if she forgave the one who made fun of her. She looks at you sideways. "Child, I forgave him the minute he remembered that story." That's the thing. Sometimes memory is the apology. Just remembering someone's awkward moment, then wrapping it in laughter, says, "We still see you and we love you anyway." It's a sharp contrast to the Western idea that forgiveness is some private, internal task. In this circle, it's external, shared, sometimes ridiculous, and always honest. You start to think about your own moments, your own past missteps that were never teased, never softened, only buried. You wonder what it would feel like if someone brought one up, not to shame you, but to joke, to smile, to remind you you're still part of the group, still wanted, still laughable in the best way. You picture someone standing up and saying, "Remember when you ruined Thanksgiving by burning the pie and blaming the oven?" Everyone laughs. Someone says that oven was suspicious, and suddenly the memory stops aching. It starts warming. That's what's happening here. Emotional composting, the stuff that once stunk now grows something new. Something hilarious. You ask one of the group members how they know when it's time to joke about something. She says, "You can only tease what you're willing to help carry. If I laugh, I also help you clean it up." It's not just teasing, it's taking part in the healing. As the sun dips low and the crowd begins to scatter, there's one final laugh. A joke about someone's sheep getting lost because they were too urban for the village. Even the sheep owner laughs. A few claps. A few whoops, and then, just like that, the mat is rolled up. And the healing session is done. You walk away lighter. You didn't say a word, but your stomach hurts from laughing, and your heart somehow feels like it's had a good stretch. Because sometimes the best way to forgive isn't to talk it out or cry it out. Sometimes you just need someone to roast your trauma gently, serve it back to you with a wink, and remind you that you're still lovable, even when you burned the porridge. The light today is tender. That's the only way to describe it. It's not bright, not dim, just soft, like it's been sifted through memories. The breeze is warm and lazy, curling around your ankles like a sleepy cat. You're invited to visit 3 homes today, couples specifically. Not therapists, not elders. Just people who've been through the ringer and still choose to sit beside each other in the fading heat, peeling oranges, trading light insults, and quietly modeling what it looks like to forgive while staying in love. At the first home, you meet Zanale and Umbangeni. They've been married for over 30 years, and they don't pretend it's been smooth. Sanelli snorts when you ask about forgiveness. This man forgot our anniversary 3 years in a row, she says, cracking open a peanut. So I told him the ancestors would know. Mbangeni laughs without flinching. I still woke up the next day. Their forgiveness didn't come all at once. It came in layers through burned stews, shared silence, and the strange intimacy of simply continuing. Mainstream psychology has something to say about this too. Long-term couples who practice ritualized reconciliation, like having a make-up meal or a post-argument walk, tend to report higher emotional resilience and less long-term resentment. Forgiveness in these cases isn't just emotional, it's logistical. It's routine, but there's a particularly Zulu flavor to how forgiveness plays out between partners here. For one, the community often plays a role. If a couple is known to be feuding too long, an elder may call them in, not out, not to scold, but to witness, to help nudge them back toward each other with grace, humor, and a few cleverly chosen proverbs. Philosophers still debate whether forgiveness in romantic partnerships should be conditional. Can you truly forgive someone without knowing they won't hurt you again? And what happens when that trust gets tested more than once? You get a partial answer at the next home. This couple, Zodwa and Thulani, have weathered something deeper: infidelity. A breach not just of trust, but of identity. You expect solemnity, maybe awkward silences. Instead, you're offered sweet tea and a place to sit on the porch. Thulani doesn't avoid the topic. In fact, he says it himself. I failed. I wounded us, but I didn't run away. Zodwa nods. I didn't chase him away either. She explains that after it happened, she didn't scream. She didn't burn his clothes. She made him sit. And she told him, we will hurt together, and then we will decide. The next day, they went to her mother's house. The mother said, okay, now we all carry this together. It sounds bizarre. Like group therapy meets group grieving, but the effect, deep, anchoring. The quirky tradition here is what they call ukuhamba, Kabili, literally to walk twice. After a serious rupture, a couple might physically retrace the spaces where they once felt love. The place they first met, a river they once bathed in, a field where they fought over whose goat wandered off. It's not for nostalgia. It's to see each other in those spaces again, with the pain now added to the picture, and still decide to stay. You imagine doing that, walking the timeline of a relationship not with denial, but with all the cracks visible, and still choosing yes. I see all this, and still, I walk. You return to the porch. Zodwa adds, forgiveness isn't forgetting. It's saying your failure doesn't get to write the ending. Thulani places a hand near hers, not touching, just near close enough that you feel the air shift. At the final house, you meet a younger couple. Barely 2 years married, they're still fresh in that way, fewer cowhouses, but also fewer scars. Their wound is smaller. One forgot to show up for the other's big day at the market, but the pattern of forgiveness is the same. A conversation, a gentle mocking, a shared meal. And a small ceremony, a token placed beneath a tree where they sit to bury the offense. Symbolic, yes, but tactile, real. Mainstream psychology often ignores these micro moments, but they matter because emotional repair isn't just for the big betrayals. It's for the little pokes, the sharp words, the rolled eyes. It's how you train your heart to soften, not snap. Before you leave, the younger wife says, we've made an agreement. If we hurt each other, we bring tea. Not explanations, just tea. Then we talk. You walk back through the village with those words rattling around in your head. Bring tea, then talk. Because love doesn't mean not hurting each other. It means learning how to hold hurt without throwing it back. It means asking again and again, do we still want this? And if the answer is yes, it means making space for clumsy apologies and graceful recoveries. Forgiveness and love here isn't cinematic. It's not rose petals and swelling music. It's firewood shared, a meal reheated, a joke made with just enough bite to sting and soothe. You think of your own relationships, the grudges that turned into silence, the hurt that calcified instead of healed. You wonder what might have changed if you'd been taught to sit to eat, to mock gently, to bury the offense beneath a tree. You wonder what might still change if you started now. Because here's the thing, in Zulu culture, forgiveness isn't weakness in love. It's the proof that the love is real. It's still dark when you're woken gently by someone tapping on your doorframe. It's Themba, the village boy who's somehow everywhere and nowhere at once. He whispers, "They're walking soon." You already know what he means. Today you're joining a dawn ritual, the graveyard walk. It's not a funeral. No one's died recently, but this is a tradition as old as the hills. When someone finally reaches forgiveness, truly reaches it deep in the marrow, they go to speak to the dead, not metaphorically, physically. You're told this is the final step for some, not always, not for everyone. But if the wound involved someone who's passed, or if the weight of it was too vast to carry alone, this is how it ends. With bare feet, dewy grass, and whispers in the dark. You follow a small group of people, walking in silence through a narrow trail that threads between thorn trees and tangled shrubs. The air is cool, wet. The sky is just starting to glow blue around the edges, like a secret being revealed. Someone up ahead carries a small clay bowl. Inside is impifo, the sacred herb. Its scent is sharp, earthy, somewhere between sage and campfire. At the edge of the village graveyard, people pause. No one speaks yet. The wind hushes even the birds. You feel the gravity of it. This isn't about fear. It's about reverence. A woman named Nokukanya steps forward. She's carried something wrapped in cloth. You don't know what it is. Maybe a letter. Maybe a photo. Maybe nothing at all. She kneels by a particular mound. The stone reads simply, "Baba, her father, gone for 7 years." Nokukanya begins to speak, not loudly, but clearly. "I was angry," she says. "I stayed angry, but I am tired. I am done. The herb is lit." Smoke rises in thin spirals. She adds, "I forgive you. I forgive me, and I let the pain go now. You do not have to carry it anymore, and neither do I." Her voice doesn't shake. She's not crying, she's still completely still. Mainstream psychology might call this symbolic closure, a ritualized act of emotional finality. Studies suggest these kinds of practices, especially when involving nature, time, and physical movement, stimulate the brain's default mode network, allowing reflection, integration, and peace. In other words, your mind knows you've closed something. Your body believes it. Philosophers still argue whether speaking to the dead is for the living or the spirit. But here that distinction doesn't matter. What matters is the release, the relief. Others approach other graves. Some whisper, some laugh. Yes, laugh, recalling jokes the deceased made. One man pours a few sips of beer onto the earth and says, "I wish we'd talked sooner, old man, but I still talk." So maybe that's enough. And here's the quirky detail. In some families, after speaking their piece, the person turns around and walks back slowly without looking over their shoulder. This is a symbolic act called yukubuyisela. Isithunzi, returning the shadow. You don't bring that old pain back with you. You leave it there, with them, where it belongs. As you walk among the resting stones, you notice small tokens left behind. A scarf, a single earring, a coin. You ask Themba about it later. He says those are pieces of the burden. They leave it so they can stop holding it. You feel something stir in you, something unspoken. A weight you didn't realize was still there. A name you haven't said in years. Someone who left before you could make things right. You wonder what it would feel like to speak to their absence, not to fix it, not to dramatize it, just to name it and then let it go. You walk back slowly with the group. No one rushes. The sky is brighter now, tinged with pink. Birds are waking up, gossiping in the trees, and yet it's quiet in your chest. Forgiveness here isn't about big gestures. It's not about being the better person or winning the emotional war. It's about knowing when to stop bleeding from a wound that's no longer being inflicted. It's about facing the memory and saying, I don't need you to apologize anymore. I don't need to carry this forward. I'm ready to have a life that doesn't hurt in the same place every time I breathe. You reach your hut just as the sun crests the hills. The light feels warm again. You sit outside, watching dust curl in the breeze around you. The village begins to move, pots clanging, children shouting. Someone's sweeping, and you're still. You're here. You've walked the long path of understanding forgiveness in Zulu culture. And even if you don't carry every ritual home, something inside you has shifted. You know what silence can say, what tea can repair, what dreams can reveal, and what must finally be left behind. Now let's ease down. So here we are, barefoot, heart a little quieter, breath a little softer. You've traveled through stories, rituals, laughter, and shadows. Maybe you've recognized a few old ghosts of your own. Maybe you've touched a wound you didn't know still flinched when you thought about it. And that's okay. Not everything heals with fireworks. Sometimes healing arrives like this, slowly, in whispers. In second chances, in roasted maize and awkward apologies and a friend offering tea without explanation. Let tonight be your graveyard walk, even if no one's watching. You can still say what needs saying. You can still let it drop into the earth, into the dark, into sleep. You are not your hurt. You are not your worst day. You are the one who stayed, who breathed, who showed up even when the words didn't. And somewhere out there, maybe behind you, maybe just ahead, someone else is learning how to forgive too. So rest now. Let the night wrap around your thoughts. Let your jaw unclench. Let your heart loosen just enough to dream a little softer. You've done enough for today. You've carried enough. You can set it down now. Good night.